Hi everyone, back to more YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. Sandro Tonali, the saga continues. Good God. This is going to keep rumbling on forevermore by the looks of it here. So there's been some further developments brought to you by some journalists that Sandro Tonali has now been investigated by the FA to see whether he was betting when he was at Newcastle United, given the fact that he's got an addiction. There's probably a good likelihood that he might have been. So what could this mean for Sandro Tonali? What could it mean for the ban and, more importantly, Newcastle United? So it could mean that Sandro Tonali's ban is possibly extended by the FA if he was breaching gambling rules whilst at Newcastle United as well. It's amazing that this hasn't come up before, given the fact that it was quite a big news story and everything else, that this prospect hasn't been discussed before. Maybe it has behind closed doors and this is the first that we're hearing about it, but it's the last thing really that Sandro needs, or certainly Newcastle United need, to have a further extension to this ban. The FA are obviously investigating now. We're going to find out in due course as to what's going on. So that's a nightmare really for the player and the club. What are Newcastle United going to do about it? Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But going back to Sandro's former club and that question of, did AC Milan know about it? AC Milan have come out in the press and apparently have said, we didn't know anything about it until it was released to the press. I don't believe a fucking word of that personally. I smell bullshit. I think AC Milan definitely had an awareness about this. How much they knew about it remains to be seen, but I do think that they knew that Sandro possibly had this vice in the background. Apparently he's had it since Brescia, so he's obviously been somebody who likes a bet, doesn't just like a bet, loves a bet, and I'm pretty sure that they would have known about that a long time ago. And given the fact there's 40 odd players have been shopped to the Italian FA, I don't believe a fucking word coming out of AC Milan's lips, but that's for the club to look at from a legal point of view. We're going back to Newcastle and the backup plan in terms of, what do we do with Sandro missing for 10 months, possibly escalating to more. So there has been loads of rumours about Ruben Neves possibly coming on loan in January, and for the first time that was put to Dan Ashworth by a group of journalists following Eddie Howe's press conference on Friday. And Dan Ashworth spoke openly and candidly about that. And he said, at this present moment, there's nothing preventing us doing that deal or doing a deal with Saudi Arabia and the Pro League to loan players in January. But he stressed at this very moment. Now, we've seen this before from the Premier League in particular, certainly with the takeover, where when they wanted to stop the takeover happening, new rules were introduced and rushed through quicker than you could, Anthony Gordon run down the wing skinning a fucking fullback. And there's a very good chance that the Premier League could do something to block the Saudi Arabian loan deals again. And if they do, to be honest with you, it just stinks of shit from high heavens. It really does. The maximum deal went through, so maybe there is a glimmer of hope that this won't happen. But the reports are Ruben Neves in particular is a very, very hot target for Newcastle to bring in to replace Sandro in the squad. And apparently Neves hasn't really settled over in Saudi Arabia, so he would welcome the deal back to England as well. So it's a deal that would benefit both the player and Newcastle United as well, and probably the PIF really if the player's unsettled. It's best to send him back to the Premier League for a 6-month loan, see if he can get his mojo back, and then have another crack at the Saudi Arabian League. But if the Premier League are put under pressure by the usual suspects, fucking Clippity Clop and his piano teeth, and Manchester United and Spurs and Arsenal and even City to an extent as well. I think City aren't as bad as the rest of them, I think, when it comes to this, because they've got their own shit to deal with. But if they put the Premier League and the FA under pressure to rush deals through, or the Premier League more importantly, to rush deals through to prevent Saudi loan deals happening at Newcastle United, then that's going to give us a real issue, because the FFP restrictions are still there. For us to go out and buy a player to replace Sandro Tonali, you're looking at anywhere between 30 to 50 million quid in the January transfer window. Likes of Manchester City want 50 million for Calvin Phillips. He's barely kicked his own arse since he's gone to City, but that's the deal that they want. The only way around that is if you negotiate a loan to permanent deal like we did with Lewis Hall, but I'm not sure that City would be willing to go for that, especially knowing that we're pretty much fucked and we need reinforcements. They probably will insist on a permanent deal, as would most clubs, for targets we'll be looking at for defensive midfield. So I really hope that Newcastle can do something to get these Saudi loan deals through, even if it is just Ruben Neves. There's loads of names being thrown out there. People are talking about Kante, Milinkovic-Savic, Laporte, and then the crazy ones like Benzema, Ronaldo, and Mane, and all this other stuff, which I don't see happening, really, to be honest with you. But Ruben Neves for certain, maybe Laporte, possibly, if there's an issue with Sven Botman. We've heard that injury's a lot longer than we think, could require surgery, so that could push Newcastle into the transfer window for a centre-half again. And to me, we need 3 players in. I think in the January transfer window we need a backup striker or a third striker to throw into the mix with Isak and Wilson, given their injury records. We need replacement for Sandro Tonali, and hopefully at number 6 you can maybe get that player in 2 and 1. And then possibly cover at centre-half as well. I know Kraft did really well in the Carabao Cup. Lascelles has done well since he's come in, but there's a lot of football to play, and to have all that football to play without Sven Botman for a period of time is a big risk, and we do need a contingency plan for those players moving forward, because they're all the wrong side of 30 anyway, much like we seem to have with the full-back position with Livramento and Hall. So it will be interesting to see what we do in the January transfer window, but I wouldn't put it past the Premier League to be pressurised into blocking these Saudi Arabian loan deals and screwing us over. And like I say, I just think it stinks of shit. So that's my thoughts on the Sandro Tonali saga that just seems to continue on and on and on, and the Saudi loan deals. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. We always like to hear from you. Drop a like as well if you can. Subscribe. If you fancy being a member, it's less than £2. Click whatever button tickles your fancy, or all 3 if you fancy, which is even better. We'll be back with some Newcastle United content later on. Arsenal this weekend, big game. Hopefully Newcastle can keep that unbeaten streak kind of moving on in terms of the Premier League, and get 3 points against the Gunners at St James's Park, and continue to push to the top 4, then bring on Dortmund next week. We'll catch you there, everyone. Cheers, bye.